The first thing I heard after waking up was the buzz of fluorescent lights and the low hum of machines. My head throbbed, my back ached, and a nurse I didn't recognize leaned over me with a calm, professional tone. "Mrs. Langford, you passed out at work. You've been unconscious for 3 hours. We called your son. He hasn't responded." Of course he hadn't. My name is Grace Langford. I'm 63 years old. I've worked full-time for over 4 decades. Raised a son. Paid off a mortgage. Buried a husband. I never leave the house without brushing my silver hair into a twist and pinning in the same pearl earrings I've worn for 30 years. That night, as I lay there, hooked to machines and tubes, all I could think about was how Derek, my only son, had become someone I didn't recognize. The next morning, my coworker Mia pulled me aside as I returned to collect my belongings from the office. She looked hesitant but resolute. "I thought you should see this," she said, handing over her phone. It was a photo. Derek's wife, Lindsay, glass of wine in hand, smiling on the balcony of their high-rise condo. The caption read, "Finally a peaceful night. No calls. No drama. #quiet evening #blessed." The post was time-stamped exactly when I was unconscious in the ER. The comments were worse. "She deserves a break. Old people and their endless problems. Enjoy it, girl. You earned it." 847 likes. Dozens of laughing emojis. I gave the phone back without a word. Then I walked into the nearest empty office, closed the door, and sat silently for several minutes. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just stopped pretending. I was done. I took out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't touched in over 2 years. Helen Morrison, estate attorney. We'd met at a fundraiser years ago. She'd given me her card and said, "If you ever need to protect your legacy, call me." So I called. "This is Grace Langford," I said when she answered. "I need an emergency consultation. Today." Helen's voice shifted immediately. "Are you ready to restructure?" "I'm ready to stop being used." Her office was in a glass tower downtown, cool and quiet, with wall-to-wall books and a view of the skyline. 3 p.m. Sharp, I sat across from her conference table, my hands folded, my pearls catching the afternoon light. Helen introduced her colleague Seth, a thin, detail-driven forensic accountant. He looked over his glasses at me like I was a ledger in need of red ink. "Tell us what happened," Helen said. So I did. The collapse. The hospital. The silence. The post. The likes. The humiliation. Seth didn't blink. "Let's talk about what we're protecting." I listed everything. Primary home, $1. 1 million. Lake rental, $390,000. Small mountain cabin, $170,000. Investments, $19. 6 million. 2 LLCs formed for tax protection. Liquid cash, $160,000. "Any co-ownership?" Helen asked. "Yes," I said. "Derek is co-trustee on 1 LLC. I added him after my husband passed. I thought it would make him grow up." "That was the mistake," Seth replied. "But it's fixable." What followed was 2 hours of restructuring. Quiet, ruthless, legal restructuring. Seth created an irrevocable trust with behavior clauses. If any heir is found to engage in manipulation, neglect, or coercion toward me, present or past, their distribution is permanently void. We set up springing liens on both LLCs. High-interest notes that trigger balloon payments in 6 months. Derek would owe hundreds of thousands. And the only way to stop it? My cooperation. Which he'd never get. Helen added what she called the silent clause. A pre-approved trigger in probate that freezes all claims if fraud or manipulation is detected. Lastly, liquidation protocol. A fast-track sale of all properties, even below market. Convert it all into untouchable cash within days. The moment I give the word, everything moves. "How far are you willing to go?" Helen asked. I didn't hesitate. "All the way." Seth leaned back and smiled for the first time. "Then we'll make sure they never see it coming." That night, I went home and sat in the kitchen I'd cooked in for over 30 years. I poured tea. I stared at the old wooden cabinets. Then I opened my photo albums. One by one, I deleted every family photo from my phone. Christmases. Graduations. Vacations. Gone. I backed them up onto a hard drive, placed it in a locked drawer and closed it. I wasn't erasing the past. I was storing it where Derek would never reach it. My mother taught me grace. Life taught me math. And now? Now I preferred math. Tomorrow I'd begin taking it all back, one signature at a time. The next morning I wore my best navy suit. Simple lines, pearl brooch. It wasn't vanity. It was armor. Helen had scheduled an 8 a.m. meeting. When I arrived, Seth already had files open, pages marked with color-coded tabs. "We're calling this structure a layered debt trap," he said. "Everything looks separate on paper, but it's all connected. Once it starts collapsing, it can't stop. And your son won't see it coming until it's too late." Helen poured coffee from a silver carafe. "The beauty is in the silence. They'll think they're winning, until they're buried under paperwork." Seth laid out the 3 phases. Phase 1. Transfer all properties into the new irrevocable trust. The primary home, rental and cabin, all protected by a conduct clause. If Derek tries to contest anything, we present proof of neglect or fraud, like the forged credit application you mentioned, Seth said. Everything freezes. Permanently. I nodded. No appeals. No warnings. Exactly. Phase 2. Springing liens. Short-term balloon debts attached to the LLCs. Activated automatically after asset transfer. They require full repayment in 6 months, Seth explained. And the only way to settle them is with your direct cooperation, which he will not have. If he tries to access funds? I asked. He'll default, and his credit will burn. Phase 3. Fire sale. Liquidate the properties quickly, slightly under market but fast. All cash transferred into defensive accounts inside the trust. Helen leaned forward. By the time he realizes what's happening, the assets will be gone, and all that's left for him will be liability. How long do we have? I asked. If we're aggressive? 2 weeks, Seth said. Maybe less. I looked him straight in the eye. Be aggressive. Over the next hour we mapped out every move. Every signature I placed would be notarized. Every meeting recorded with video. I would make 3 separate statements on camera affirming my mental clarity, full control, and 0 outside influence. This way, Helen said. If he tries to say you weren't of sound mind, we'll bury him in proof. What about inheritance advances? I asked. Seth smiled again. Funny you mentioned that. There are companies that offer risky estate loans to eager heirs. The catch? Personal guarantees. If Derek takes one of those, he'll be liable for the full amount, regardless of whether he inherits a dime. I leaned back in my chair. Perfect. Helen slid over a stack of paperwork. Trust formation documents, lien instructions, liquidation approvals, asset transfers, banking notifications. With every signature, I felt years lifting off my shoulders. There's one more thing, I said as we neared the end. I opened my purse and pulled out an old folder. Inside, a credit card statement with my name forged. Derek had used my information to apply. I never reported it. I didn't want him to get into legal trouble. Back then I still made excuses. Now I was making plans. Helen examined it and her face hardened. This changes everything. This is fraud, Seth said. And we can prove it. That's more than grounds for asset freeze. That's potential criminal exposure. I don't want revenge, I said. I want consequences. They both nodded. That afternoon I walked through my house, the house I raised Derek in. I opened drawers filled with photo albums, birthday cards, mementos. I started boxing them. Every photo from his wedding. Every Christmas morning. Every family trip I paid for. I didn't cry. I packed them with methodical calm. Kindness leaves doors open. Contracts lock them shut. That evening, I received the first message from Derek in 3 weeks. Hey Mom, we need to talk about your future. Lindsay has ideas for your retirement plan. Let's catch up soon. I didn't respond. By the next morning the engine was running. Seth had found a cash buyer for the rental property. A young couple. They could close in 10 days. The primary home would take longer. But even that had an interested party, a buyer willing to match asking price with a 30-day close. Helen warned me. They're going to panic when they realize what's happening. Let them, I said. Panic makes people reckless. That Friday night, I sat alone in my kitchen. No phone calls. No interruptions. No noise. Monday morning, the moving trucks arrived right on time. I scheduled them for 9 a.m. because I knew Derek and Lindsay would be at their usual late brunch, sipping mimosas and taking photos of their avocado toast for social media. I stood on the front lawn as strangers carried out 34 years of my life. The dining table where Derek once did homework. The upright piano he gave up after 6 lessons. The china cabinet filled with gifts from a wedding that didn't last. One of the movers held up a framed photo from Derek's college graduation. Where would you like this, ma'am? I didn't even hesitate. Donation box. The real estate agent, Patricia, arrived just as the last piece of furniture was being loaded. She specialized in high-value homes and knew how to move things fast. Grace, darling, she said, stepping out of her sleek black sedan. Are you sure about the 30-day timeline? That's a quick turnaround for a house this size. The buyer's offering full cash at asking price. What's there to question? She grinned. I like your style. Let's sign it. We went over the listing agreement on the porch. The same porch where I once sat with Derek helping him fill out college applications. I signed it without blinking. By noon, Seth had already liquidated a portion of my investment accounts. The tax bill would be significant, but as he said, freedom is expensive. Slavery costs more. The rental property closed that Tuesday. A clean cash sale to a newly married couple. No drama. No strings. Wednesday afternoon my phone started buzzing. 6 missed calls from Derek. 2 from Lindsay. Then a 7th rang in. I answered. Mom? What's going on? I just drove by the rental house. There's a sold sign. Why didn't you tell me you were selling? I don't need to explain my decisions, Derek. Silence. Wait, are you selling the main house too? Mrs. Ellis said there were movers yesterday. That's correct. Where are you going? I'm sending you a letter. From now on, all communication goes through my attorney, Helen Morrison. Your attorney? Mom, what is this? What's happening? I ended the call. The letter arrived at his condo the next morning via certified mail. Derek, from this point forward, all communication regarding assets, estate matters, or legal affairs must be directed to my legal counsel, Helen Morrison. Grace Langford. Later that night, Lindsay posted a video on her Instagram story. Sitting on their balcony with a wine glass in hand, she addressed the camera in her usual sugary tone. We've had a little bit of unexpected family drama. But don't worry, it's all being sorted. Sometimes older relatives get confused about finances. That's when the younger generation has to step in and make smart decisions. She winked. The comments flooded in. You're such a good daughter-in-law. Let us know when you move in. Can't wait for a house tour. I screenshotted every single one. Then I did what Helen advised. I opened my phone's camera and hit record. My name is Grace Langford. I am of sound mind and body, acting of my own free will, with no external influence. The financial decisions I am making reflect 40 years of hard work. I am competent and clear. And I am doing this to protect what I've earned. Friday morning, Patricia installed the sold sign in front of my main home. The one where Derek learned to walk. Where I stayed up during his flu seasons. Where I'd cooked every Thanksgiving meal until the last one. When they didn't even show up. I received a text later that day from an unknown number. Estate advance up to $2. $5 million available for qualified heirs. Fast approval. No court delays. Click to schedule. I smiled. Seth had warned me that predatory lending companies scan public records and jump at the chance to trap greedy heirs waiting for inheritance. I forwarded the message to Helen with one word. Started. She responded. Perfect. The hook is in. That same day, I finalized the purchase of a small coastal cottage. 2 bedrooms. Ocean view. Paid in cash from the first round of liquidation. It wasn't about running away. It was about starting over on my own terms. Saturday evening, as I placed my pearls in the drawer of my new bedroom, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a public tag on a real estate agent's Instagram. Sold in 12 days. Congrats to our client Grace Langford on her new chapter. The photo showed my old house now empty with a big red sold banner across the lawn. I imagined Derek and Lindsay staring at the screen, wondering how it all slipped through their fingers. They thought they were planting themselves in a field of inheritance. They didn't know they were walking straight into a trap. Sunday morning arrived with no peace, only notifications. My phone showed 17 missed calls from Derek. 4 from Lindsay. No voicemails. Just silence behind the desperation. I ignored them all. At 2:47 p.m. I received a new email. Subject: Schedule confirmation, Inheritance Bridge Capital. Body: Thank you, Derek Langford. Your consultation has been confirmed. Our representative will contact you within 48 hours to discuss your estate advance request. I forwarded it to Helen with no words. She replied within minutes. Keep it. Let the clock start. Helen's associate, Seth, had already done his research. The lender Derek chose, Inheritance Bridge Capital, was known for its brutal contracts and staggering interest rates. 94% default rate. Layers of clauses buried under polished branding. It wasn't illegal, just immoral. And Derek had signed up without blinking. I spent Monday morning drinking tea in my cottage garden, reviewing Seth's latest report. A document that read like a guided tour of Derek's downfall. According to surveillance, Derek had shown up to the meeting in a navy suit, ironed, overpriced, probably one I bought him for job interviews 5 years ago. Lindsay had waited in the lobby, live-streaming her manicure. They didn't even try to hide their intentions. The executive, Dorian Pike, welcomed Derek with handshakes and charm. "We don't call it debt," he reportedly said. "We call it a bridge to your future." The contract was over 40 pages. Derek signed it in under 20 minutes. Digital signatures. No legal review. No questions asked. The advance he requested? $350,000. What they actually received? $180,000 after fees. That same week, Seth's financial monitoring software picked up activity on their accounts. Within 12 days, Derek and Lindsay had already spent over half the money. A leased BMW, designer furniture, a deposit for a luxury vacation, payment toward overdue taxes, a consultation with a cosmetic surgeon. I watched all this unfold with the clarity of someone finally seeing the full picture. They weren't just greedy. They were predictable. By Friday, they were in talks with another lender. This one even worse. Short-term liquidity with daily interest increases. Seth called me that afternoon. "Do you want us to let this continue?" "Yes," I said. "Let them keep digging." The next day, I boxed up the last remaining item from my past life. It was a photo of Derek as a boy, missing teeth, holding a fishing rod, beaming beside his father. I looked at it one last time, then slid it into an envelope and marked it. For the records. That evening my phone rang again. Blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. "Mom, it's Derek. I don't know what's going on. You've frozen everything. Lindsay and I had plans. This isn't fair. We were counting on the house, the assets. This isn't how families treat each other. Call me, please." I didn't call back. I wasn't punishing him. I was protecting myself. By Monday, Helen had filed sealed motions with probate court. A misconduct clause, activated automatically if there was credible evidence of fraud or elder manipulation. Translation: Derek would never inherit anything. And if he tried to force the issue, the trust would activate its conduct lock, barring all access permanently. The real genius came from Seth's newest addition. He had uncovered the forged credit card application Derek filed last year, using my social security number. I'd never reported it until now. Seth's team ran verification, compared handwriting, traced IP logins, matched timestamps. The proof was airtight. When Helen saw it, her face hardened. This isn't just estate planning anymore. This is justice. They filed a formal fraud complaint that same afternoon. That night, I walked along the shoreline outside my new home. I didn't feel victorious. I felt still. And that stillness mattered more than any apology I never received. They had underestimated me. They thought love was weakness. That I'd always bend. Always forgive. Always fund their life. But this time I wasn't bending. I was watching. And the rope they tied for me? They were now wearing it themselves. By Wednesday, Seth sent me a new file labeled D. Langford Exposure Risk Matrix. It was a spreadsheet detailing every financial move Derek had made since signing with Inheritance Bridge Capital. The document read like a slow-motion collapse. The $180,000 advance was down to $14,000. Interest from the estate loan had started compounding daily. A second advance had been requested. Personal guarantee contracts were triggered. Payment failure default date, 11 days away. And he didn't even know about the final motion Helen filed. Yet. Thursday morning, I was sitting in my cottage garden when the doorbell rang. Not many people came by without calling first. I opened it to find a courier holding an envelope. To Grace Langford. From Inheritance Bridge Capital Legal Division. Inside a notice. We are contacting you in regard to the estate of Grace Langford. One of your potential beneficiaries has leveraged their anticipated portion of your estate in exchange for a financial advance. Please confirm asset status. I smiled and picked up my phone. To Helen. Subject trigger reached. Attachment. IBIS_notice. PDF. Message. They blinked. Within the hour, Helen sent a one-line response. We're filing the backstop now. The backstop was a full decoupling of all remaining trust components from any external entity. No matter how many contracts Derek signed, no matter how deep he went into debt, it wouldn't touch the trust. All liability would land on him. And because he'd used my name to fraudulently secure credit in the past, we could now legally argue he had no expectation of inheritance at all. That alone nullified his position. By Friday, Helen had the final confirmation. The trust was now sealed. The assets, untouchable. The inheritance Derek had promised to lenders didn't legally exist anymore. That evening my phone rang again. This time I answered. Derek's voice was sharp with panic. Mom, what is going on? You need to speak with Helen, I said calmly. I did. She won't tell me anything. Do you even understand what's happening? We've got loans. We've got obligations. I put everything on the line for what I thought was going to be mine. It was never yours, Derek. What are you talking about? I'm your son. No, you're someone who used my name, my credit, my trust, and you gambled it all. That's not family. That's exploitation. Silence. You're ruining our lives, he finally said. You think this is justice? You're going to regret this. No, Derek, I said quietly. What I regret is letting it go this far. I hung up. Saturday morning, Seth sent me a screen recording. It showed Derek's bankruptcy consultation confirmation page. His name, the timestamp, the reason listed. Unsecured personal debt tied to inheritance expectation. Later that day, Lindsay posted a video to her followers. She looked exhausted. Eyes puffy, makeup barely holding. People change. Sometimes even family. Especially when money's involved. But we're strong. We'll rebuild. We'll figure it out. No mention of why they were suddenly selling their furniture. No mention of the debt collectors. Just vague sadness. Carefully curated. I didn't watch the whole clip. Instead, I opened my journal and wrote 5 words. They learned nothing. But I did. The final confirmation came Monday morning. Helen had received an email from the secondary lender Derek used after the first estate advance. He'd defaulted. The lender had begun legal proceedings against him personally. Because Derek had signed personal guarantees for every dollar borrowed, they could, and would seize everything under his name. His car. His accounts. Even future income.